Hi guys, I'm Samina and welcome to the Cupcake Confession, where I show you how you can learn to make amazing decadent desserts and sweet treats. If this is something that you enjoy, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you do that, also don't forget to ding this little bell button. That way you will be notified every time I post a new recipe. Today we're making cinnamon roll macarons without any nut or seed flour, and we're filling these macarons with our signature best ever cream cheese frosting. So let's get started. We're first going to begin by sifting all of our dry ingredients. So here I have some icing sugar, oat flour and cinnamon powder. Now what I have done is I've used quick cook oats and I've just ground them in a food processor and then passed it through a sieve. So this is the second time that I'm sifting the oat flour along with the rest of the dry ingredients. Once you've done that, you're just going to use a spatula and just mix all of these ingredients together so they're well combined. You could even use a whisk as long as the ingredients come together and they are mixed well. Once you've done that, you're going to keep it aside, and now it's time for us to start beating our egg whites. So I'm going to take egg whites at room temperature, and to that I'm going to add a sprinkle of sea salt, and then we'll start beating this. So we'll first begin on low speed with our electric beaters because we just want to start getting the egg whites used to the beating process. So you'll see that by the end of 2 minutes they'll get really nice and foamy. Once they do that, we will start adding our caster sugar into this egg white mix. We'll increase the speed to medium and we'll add the caster sugar a little at a time in small batches because we don't want to overwhelm the egg whites. We want to introduce this a little at a time, mix it well, and then add the rest or a little bit more of the caster sugar. Doing this will take roughly 3 minutes. And you will see that it goes from being foamy to being extremely beautiful and glossy. Once you've added all of the caster sugar, you're going to crank up the speed to high and go for another 2.5 minutes. And you'll see that when you swirl the beaters in your egg white mix, they will retain their shape. That's when you know the stiff peaks have been achieved. So now we're going to start introducing our egg whites into our dry ingredients mix. So you do that a little at a time. Again, you don't want to add all of the egg whites and deflate it at once. So you'll introduce a little bit, mix it well, and then you're going to add some more and keep mixing it. Eventually you're going to add the rest of the egg whites and you will start mixing this in a particular motion just to make sure that all the ingredients are combining well. And not just that, also that you're deflating the egg whites and the air that you created. Now initially you're going to think that there is something wrong with this recipe and that the dry ingredients are probably more in quantity, but don't worry, as you keep mixing this it will start to loosen up. So I like to use this method of mixing it. So you go around the sides of the bowl and then swipe with your spatula in the center, and as you keep doing this a few times it starts to loosen up, and this is the consistency that you're looking for. So when you lift the batter off your spatula, it should fall off in flowy ribbons, and that's when you know it's done. If it's too tight, you're not going to be able to pipe this, and if it's too loose, it's going to spread everywhere. So stop just when it starts to make that ribbon stage. And I'm using a little bit of that macaron batter to glue my parchment paper in place. I have circles drawn onto my parchment paper with a pencil. I've inverted the parchment paper and then I'm piping my macaron batter onto this parchment paper, so I know exactly when to stop. And also all the macaron shells end up being of the same size. Also when you're piping the macarons, very important to hold the piping bag at a 90-degree angle perpendicular to your cookie sheet, so it doesn't end up baking lopsided, because if you pipe these at an angle and you bake them in the oven, they will bake and they will rise more on one side and less on the other, which you don't want. So once you've piped all of the macarons, it's time to get rid of any air pockets that might be in this macaron batter. So you're going to tap it really hard against the counter. Rotate your tray by 90 degrees and then do the same several times until all the sides have been covered. Once you do that, you will also notice that some air pockets, they don't pop, they just rise up to the surface and leave bubbles. So you're going to use a pointed object like a skewer, a toothpick or a fork and just burst those bubbles. Once you've done that, you're going to sprinkle some cinnamon powder on the surface of the macarons. It just adds a nice touch to your macarons. And once you've done that, it's time to let these macarons sit at room temperature so they dry out a bit. It takes about 20 minutes, so when you just lightly or gently touch the surface of the macarons, they will feel dry to the touch. That's when you are supposed to bake these in the oven. But before you do that, while they're sitting out at room temperature, it's nice to preheat the oven at 140 degrees Celsius so the oven is warm enough when you pop these into the oven for baking. Once they're in the oven, you're going to bake them for 20 minutes, get them out, let them rest, and then peel them off the parchment paper. Now it's time to fill the macarons, and we're going to do that with the best cream cheese frosting recipe that I had posted a few days back on my YouTube channel. You can see the link and it's also there in the description below. I have used a Wilton 6B tip to pipe these, and once you've frosted a nice little swirl, you're going to top it with the other shell of the macaron, and here you have the most beautifully delicious cinnamon roll macarons. Guys, this is it. If you have any comments or suggestions, pop them down in the comments below. I post a new recipe every Tuesday and Thursday, so if this is something that you enjoy and if you want to be notified every time I post a new recipe, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and while you do that, also don't forget to ding this little bell button. I'll see you again next time. Bye.